I've personally helped start 1,000 fashion brands in the last 10 years, and I didn't go to fashion school. Do you need to go to fashion school in order to start a successful brand? On the contrary, what I've learned over the last 10 years, and I've learned ultimately that you are at a disadvantage if you have a fashion degree. What are the baseline skills that you need if you're getting into the fashion space so that you can build a profitable and successful and innovative fashion brand? When it comes to creating any business, the aspect or the product design aspect is a core component. But beyond that, what we need to know is we need to create something that people want to buy, and we need to be able to sell it to them for more than it costs us to deliver that product to them. And we need to be able to do that at scale and to handle the different challenges that come when scaling this issue. How you deal with those issues of scale and consistency and longevity is what you need to build as an entrepreneur. So what are these skills that you ultimately cannot outsource that you need to learn when getting into the fashion space? Number one is you ultimately need to build and develop the skill of a clear vision and understanding your brand identity. The person who knows where they are heading or ultimately has a destination in mind is going to go further and is going to make sure that each step that they take is more effective than that person who is walking without a direction in mind. It ultimately means, why are you getting into the fashion space? What are you trying to do that your competitors are maybe not doing? What gap in the market are you trying to fill? Who are you trying to sell? What type of product are you trying to create? When are you looking to launch? This is what we call vision and brand identity. Where do you want to be in 1 year? How are you going to set those goals? And what are the milestones that you need beforehand? Where are you going to get the capital? This is what vision is when it comes to building a business. Skill number two that you do not learn in fashion school and that you need to learn on your own is the skill of problem solving and ultimately the skill of resilience. Building a business is not a linear path. You rely on others and you rely on circumstances that are outside of your immediate control in order to get the goals that you need. So let's take a small fashion brand, for example. A small fashion brand has many different steps that it needs to take in order to launch its first collection. It needs to know what its brand identity is. So it needs to have some sort of a logo and visual in mind. It needs to know who its core customer is. This requires a little bit of psychological, demographical evaluation of the market and knowing what market you want to tap into and what that customer looks like in that specific market. Then ultimately it needs to know what type of product it needs to make. What type of product? How should that product fit? What fabric to use? What's trending? What sort of colors to use? Each of these small steps brings with it a unique problem. Let's say, for example, this fabric that I'm trying to use, it's not available. Perhaps the minimum order quantity is too large. What is the alternative? How can I negotiate them down? How can I find the right person to help me? How can I find the right tools to be able to deliver what I need? This is called problem solving. When you are just focusing on the techniques of being a fashion designer, you're focusing on the art aspect. You're not focusing on the business aspect. The problem or the idea of problem solving means that anything that comes my way, I'll be able to find a solution around it. Skill number three that you need to learn is what we call as strategic planning and budgeting. Strategic planning is being able to break up a large project into key milestones: brand identity, product design or market research, product design and development, tech pack creation, sampling and prototyping, manufacturing, marketing. All of these present project milestones you need to hit. At the same time, you need to look at budgeting, knowing what capital you have to invest, getting creative with your financing, figuring out ways to make your dollars stretch, knowing what a product is going to cost you versus what you should sell it at. Also, knowing everything there is about your costs is going to be key, because most people assume that it's just the manufacturing cost that is what they need to factor in. So they say, if a product costs me $15 to manufacture, then I need to sell it for $30. But they don't understand that there's many other things. There's your cost of delivery of that product from the warehouse to where you are, and then from your warehouse to where the customer is. That's the shipping cost. There's also the marketing cost, the cost to acquire a customer. You have what is known as direct cost and indirect cost. Most people only assume some of the direct cost, aka the manufacturing cost. Then they don't look at the indirect cost, the marketing cost, the overhead cost. Skill number four is what I consider to be marketing and storytelling. When I started Fittdesign, the first thing that I used to do is I would create posts. I'd put together outfits together and I'd post them every single day on my Instagram. What I didn't realize at the time is that I was storytelling. By putting the outfits together, I was creating something that no one else was and had been creating up until that time. I was allowing people to visualize what they would look like in those pieces within a specific theme. That is called storytelling there. And that was a part of marketing at the time. It's not about creating or having a full-fledged marketing team in the beginning. It's about knowing how to position your product at the center of your story. Marketing is just simple. It's about letting people know what or who you are, what you have to offer, and where to buy it. Skill number 5 is what I consider to be just basic fashion design knowledge. So this is where I contradict the beginning of the video where I say you don't need to be a fashion designer in order to get into the fashion space. And this is true. I'm actually an architect. I trained and studied as an architect. I didn't know anything about fashion. I didn't know anything about stitch types. I didn't know anything about different types of pattern making or how to fit a garment. I didn't know about different garment types. I learned all of that on the fly. I remember the first time I developed my own tech pack. What I was doing was I was working with another company and I would just see their original tech packs. And I was analyzing them as someone who didn't really know what a tech pack was. And I sort of built my tech pack based off of what I thought was missing for the average person. What I had learned was that there was something missing. They were just missing these very basic things that were needed to communicate their ideas. So I took that as an opportunity for me to improve on my own stuff. And actually, not being a fashion designer gave me an edge because I wasn't thinking about the tech pack within the lens of what I had learned in school. I was thinking about it through the lens of an average person. So I was forced to innovate, and that was a big advantage for me. These are the core things, but in general, know the basics. I highly recommend a company called Fashionary. And they have the fashion encyclopedia, and then they have the textilepedia. They're just really good visual guides. They're very simple to read books, and they just kind of take you through the core stitch types, the core seam types, the core hemline types, different fabrics, different fabric finishes. And it just gives you the baseline, the ABCs that you can use to build off of. Skill number 6, and finally, is what I consider to be the most esoteric of skills. And this is where you really create the separation between amazing fashion entrepreneurs and the ones that just remain average. This is product selection and planning. The best entrepreneurs that I've seen just have a knack for knowing what products to launch, which times of year, and which colors. All of these elements give you the tools that you need to select your products, to know what types of products to launch, and ultimately how to plan ahead. Sometimes it's actually better to be more aggressive and to buy more product because there's more opportunity there. And that deficit between what you could have sold versus what you ordered and what you did sell is where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. They just don't know what products to select. They don't buy enough of the products that do sell, and they buy too much of the products that don't sell. This is product selection and prioritization. Use me as an example of why you don't need a formal fashion education to build a successful fashion brand. If you look at most of the successful sportswear brands in the space, they've been built by people who are entrepreneurs like you or me, who had a vision and who ultimately figured that their vision was worth releasing to the world. If you guys are curious in terms of what you might need to do to fill in your knowledge gaps and where your unique value as an entrepreneur might lie, you can check the link in the description. I do offer one-on-one consultation calls every single week, and slots are limited, but you may want to check it out, and I'll be more than happy to hop on that call personally with you and give you my personal guidance. Also, if you just want to check out the episodes, you want to check out more episodes, you can consider subscribing. We put out great content on a week-to-week basis, and it would mean the absolute world to us if you would smash that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. Guys, I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.